Marc, Caputo, welcome to this episode. I don't know what we're going to call this. Bulwark recap, look ahead, convention, Democratic convention night. Thanks for being on.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm sorry. I had a late night last night listening to Joe Biden, so I'm a little cobwebby.
It went real late. What was so there's a lot of talk about Joe Biden, kind of getting pushed out of prime time. They say, well, this is, people on the East Coast are in bed by now. They're not going to be able to watch this. But Marc, you were saying some people thought that this was by design, that they are trying to minimize his presence at this convention.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was some of the social media chatter. A few people who could lay claim to sort of be, Biden world aides had to espouse that as well. The results are pretty clear. It wasn't a great speech. Joe Biden's best moment when he got on stage is before he opened his mouth. And the rest of it was sort of stuff we've heard since, 2017, or better said, since 2020, Charlottesville, et cetera. It was Biden. But the reality is when you're in the room, you really did feel the kind of the love and appreciation that Democrats have for him. I wrote a story today with Sam Stein where we talked about that sort of emotion that people have for him. And there's a bittersweet aspect to Biden in that his most celebrated act as a president for Democrats, political act as president this year for Democrats, the reason they were basically applauding him is that he's not running. And that's kind of sad. But at the same time, he sort of did his duty, sort of a Cincinnatus type character who did his duty, gave up supreme power, and is going to go back to his plow. But the energy in the room for him was real. You really felt it earlier in the night. There were three just electric speakers. I never would have thought Hillary Clinton would have been an electric speaker. She was. Warnock, Raphael Warnock, is an electric speaker. He went a little too long, but man, he finished strong. And I think maybe the star of the night might have been AOC, who just really sort of rocked it as far as just kind of the energy in the crowd. Now, she was kind of very animated. And I think when you see her on television bouncing around, it looks a little less real and truly energetic. But when you were in the room, you kind of really got a sense that AOC was a future star of the party when she got in. She's still a star. She's high up in their firmament.
I want to talk about the vibes in the room, because it does feel, we've talked a lot about this election in terms of vibe shifts, and who's got the momentum and who has the love of the crowd. But I will say that watching from TV, you're at the convention, I'm watching on TV at home. I will say the mood of this convention, much higher energy, much more love is the feeling I get watching through the TV. Yeah. I mean, I felt like the people there love AOC. They are excited for AOC, as excited as I can remember seeing a group of political activists for just about anyone. Hillary Clinton, we can talk about the strategy of Hillary and what role she can play here, but the people in the room there loved her. They seemed to even enjoy Fight Song. God bless him. And Raphael Warnock has the, kind of the big preacher energy. It's not really my vibe, but people love it. They really dig it. So it felt like, again, watching from TV, watching through the screen, it felt like there was just an enormous burst of energy last night.
There was, and that pervades the convention. What's interesting is I was at the Republican National Convention as well, and it was a very positive event. They were just really over the moon. Republicans were feeling their oats. They were going to win. Joe Biden was done. And to contrast that vibe with this one, this has the added quality of wow, we somehow survived a car crash and we're all alive and we've got all of our body parts. And that sense that they have kind of a new lease on life is really palpable. What surprised me about Hillary is I never thought she was a bad speaker, but I didn't think she was that good. She really fed off the energy in the room. I do think it's smart for them to have her. I mean, number one, you can't avoid having the former nominee. Democrats, I don't believe the conspiracy theory, feel it was stolen by Russia, right? And I think she was just kind of a reminder there, like, don't let this happen again, folks. Turn out, help us beat Donald Trump. Now, what we have to expect for the rest of the day, today, Obama's going to be up, and obviously he's just going to be the highlight of the night. But I'm curious what Obama shows up. Sometimes he can just be kind of very cerebral and a little dull, albeit, he's just sort of walking through the motions as a man who exudes such sort of natural talent and charisma that he sometimes doesn't really have to do it the way Raphael Warnock, for instance, can do it, or the way AOC did it. But I think what's interesting about Obama, the figure here, is this sort of presidency and modern Democratic Party is the house that Obama built. And this speech is going to have that quality. Remember, Obama picks Biden, Biden picks Harris. Harris is now the nominee. And there's always been this right-wing conspiracy theory, or there was in Trumplandia, about how Obama was one of the secret puppet masters behind this whole thing. So I imagine his very presence alone is going to break a few right-wing brains. But remember, he came on the scene almost exactly 20 years ago when he gave the famous red state, blue state, we're a purple America speech at the 2004 convention. And that basically made him president in 2008. So which Obama shows up now, older, whiter haired? I'm not saying that as an offense, by the way, to white haired people. Is going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen him on the trail as much in recent. I haven't seen speeches from him in recent years, so it's going to be interesting to see him back out there again. And then, of course, it's not just vibes; it's also content and what the plans are. There was there were two areas of focus, it felt like, last night, and one was odd and I didn't quite understand why they were doing it, and one made perfect sense. The odd one first. A lot of talk about COVID early in the night. Yeah. A lot of mentions of the pandemic, which I feel like people really are ready to just move on past. I don't think that's necessarily something folks really want to remember and focus on and think about.
Yeah, they're using it as a way to say, remember those horrible years during Trump. And I think that they're somehow trying to have people in the back of their mind associate Trump with the pandemic. But I do believe that most people don't think that Donald Trump was responsible for the global pandemic. Those who care to remember probably will remember his erratic nature. But just remember, the Democrats were complaining about Trumpnesia just a few months ago, saying, my God, you forgot all the bad stuff he did. And the reality is that COVID and Trump's response to COVID cost him that election. And once that was behind people, they were willing to reset it. And the reason Trump was winning wasn't because they remembered how great the economy was and all of these things under Trump. They just preferred him to Biden. And Biden was that guy who used to always say, oh, compare me to the alternative, not the almighty. And Biden could never get into his head that he was a worse alternative in the eyes of the electorate, at least when we looked at all of the polling, than Trump. And right now, Trump looks like the worst alternative, Kamala Harris, in all of the polling that we have right now. Now, there's a lot of caveats in there. All the polling right now, polls have margin of error. We've got a few more months to go, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. And we still need to hear Harris talk. She's going to have, I'm sure, lots to say. There's going to be debates. We'll see. But the thing they focused on that made a lot of sense, COVID doesn't make a lot of sense, but abortion is was a huge part of last night. There were testimonials, there were powerful speeches from women who, either couldn't get care or were at risk of having to carry the child of their, just awful stories. And that does seem to be like something that they're going to hit Trump on over and over and over again. They kept referring to, I think, Trump's abortion bans, which is interesting because, as far as I can tell, the Trump campaign is not saying the word abortion. They are like, what is this? What is this thing that you're talking about? I don't know what that is. And that really feels like they are abortion, trying to saddle him.
Right? That kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Don't even know her. I remember talking to Trump in May of 2023, where he would literally say the A word. He would say, I don't even like to say it, because he knew how toxic it was. And what's interesting about Trump in this context is Florida has an abortion ban repeal, or better said, Florida Democrats, liberals, women's rights, abortion rights activists are putting on the ballot, essentially a re-enshrinement of Roe at the state level in the state constitution. And Trump's position has been, hey, I'm just going to leave everything up to the states. And I was the first one to ask him, like, okay, man, well, you're going to actually vote on this in your state. How are you going to vote? And he so far hasn't answered it. And that, for the Democrats, is sort of checkmate, because when you look at the electorate, more and more there is this gender divide. Women are with the Democrats, a majority of them, and a majority of men are with the Republicans. The problem for the Republican end of that equation is that A, there are more women, B, there are more women who are registered to vote, and C, they have higher turnout rates than men. So, Trump's sort of supersized, macho, manly strategy for maximizing the male vote, that might be great, but the Democrats know it, and they are effectively, to your point, using abortion as a messaging tool. And obviously it's something that a majority of Americans support, and certainly a supermajority of their base.
Yeah, well, the base, I mean, look, it depends on how you want to look at this election, right? Is this a base election, or is this you gotta win the swing voters election? And obviously every election is kind of both, but you tend to focus on one or the other. And if you break down the numbers, it's really interesting, because Republicans actually have slim leads with married men and single men, but also married women. It's single women that Democrats just run up super majorities on. This is they're blowing out that category, which is again why I think it makes a lot of sense to focus on abortion, focus on reproductive rights and that sort of thing, if you want to make sure that the base turns out. That's true.
I think now whether I would love to know, we were talking about this earlier before we went on camera. I would love to know, like, not only which Obama is going to show up, but to what degree is he going to be talking about abortion rights versus just sort of in what used to be the Biden-esque terms, restoring the soul of America. I don't really know, but I think when the story of this convention is written, and in the end, like, conventions matter to a degree, the message progression that you're seeing from the Democrats of just, yesterday was basically, when you look at macro levels, Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. That's the old Democratic Party. Then you have Obama, who still sort of lays claim to being the new Democratic Party. Now you are going to have Bill Clinton in there just because he's a fabulous speaker. And then eventually it's going to kind of culminate with Kamala Harris. Her campaign is slowly or effectively starting to talk more and more about the next generation, the new generation. And it's effective for them because more and more polling is showing that Donald Trump is perceived as being too old by the electorate. And this is quite a petard for Trump to be hoisted on, or kind of quite a reversal of fortune. Because remember, it was Trump and Republicans who were making age and agedness such a big issue. Well, that's starting to cut really for Harris. And I think starting tonight, you're going to start seeing more and more of that emphasis on new generation, the future, let's move forward.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I think would be interesting to see if we get a lot of this from Obama is more about Harris herself. I mean, Biden last night was really focused on, here's my career, here are the things I did. Yeah. Also, Harris is running for president. You should vote for her.
Yeah, here's your gold watch, Grandpa. Yeah.
Yeah, it felt, and look, we were discussing this a little bit in the Slack, and in your newsletter with Sam this morning, you mentioned, Biden never really got a proper convention because of COVID. He didn't get to give the big acceptance speech. He didn't get that, wave of adulation. Compare that to 2016 when he comes out and gives a great speech for Hillary. Everyone gets real excited. And now he's giving his, kind of like valedictory, see guys on the flip side. And it definitely, we were expecting last night more of a, here's why you should vote for Harris. We didn't really get that. I wonder if Obama will be able to put that argument forward a little bit better tonight.
I assume he will. And I remember, sorry to keep remembering back to my day, in 2012 when Obama, at the Democratic convention in Charlotte, I remember I was there, and the most memorable speech was actually Bill Clinton, because he just did this masterful job just speaking seemingly off the cuff as a former president who was making the case almost more powerfully for Obama's reelection than Obama was. And it was just an incredibly well-tailored, executed argument, to your point, about here's why you need to show up and vote. Here's why you shouldn't vote for the other side. I would assume that's going to be an Obama thing, but as I said, I'm not sure which one shows up, sort of the cerebral professor or the guy who knows how to kind of whip Democrats up into a lather. Or maybe it's a false choice. Maybe it's both.
Yes. All right. Let's do one last thing here. Best of the night, worst of the night. What was the best moment of the night from your POV?
I actually from the speechifying category, it was the close of Warnock's speech. Part of it went on too long and was a bit of a snooze. But, he's sort of the soul and conscience of the Democratic convention so far, talking about the poor, talking about children, a very sort of classic preacher in the pulpit, Christ-like moment. And he knew how to flourish, and that place just erupted. Now, I do think that as far as sustained applause, Hillary Clinton got more of it. It's just sort of a welcome back Cotter kind of moment, right? Worse than that, Joe Biden, right? He went late, he glitched, and it's just like shouty, slurry stuff. And it was just a reminder for everyone in the room who wants Democrats to win and Trump to lose, like, whew, we dodged this bullet. Like he glitched, he, had problems speaking at different times. And also there's he speaks in the staccato rat-a-tat-tat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 syllables, and then pauses again because it's just hard for him to speak. And it's just, you get this sort of, vicarious sense of
Yeah. Yeah. For me, best of the night again, AOC. I thought she was great. Great high energy speech. She's a star. She continues to be a star. Worst of the night. We haven't talked about this at all, but Kathy Hochul. I said in the,
cool.
can we just talk? I mean, I don't know what it was like in the room, but watching it on TV. I don't know if you watched the show What We Do in the Shadows, but on that show, there's a character called the Energy Vampire who just sucks the energy out of everybody around them, right. And that's how he feeds. And that's how I felt watching this. I was just like, my head was drooping. I was like, you gotta get her off the stage. This is how is she an elected official? That's what I was wondering to myself.
I think she kind of threw shade at Florida, bragged about oh, we convicted Trump. Just reminded me of one of those relatives at Thanksgiving who's just had a little too much Chablis, right? Just blah, blah, blah,
Wine ant. All right, Marc, thanks for talking about this. Looking forward to tonight. Have fun in Chicago. Get us all the scoops and the vibes. We want all that.
All right, thanks, Sonny. I appreciate you.